Greetings to all the students. Welcome to biology and chemistry lessons. We are once again here with a new biology class. The topic is same, transport system. And in the transport system, we have already seen the structure of heart, the process of blood circulation, the different type of the blood vessels and their function and structures. And today we are doing the last part of this topic, this chapter, that is composition of blood. So let's see what is blood. So blood is actually a liquid tissue. Why it is a tissue? Because we know that group of cells are called tissues. So our blood is made up of group of cells, combination of cells, which we are going to see in the discussion today. So since it is liquid in nature, it is a liquid tissue. It is a connective tissue. Why it is a connective tissue? Because it is when during the circulation, it connects different parts of the body. And it is a medium of transportation of nutrients and oxygen to different parts of the body. Let's see the general functions of the blood. Blood picks up the oxygen from the lungs during the circulation, drop it to the cells and tissues. It picks up digested food from the intestine and drop them to the cells and tissues. And the oxygen and the digested food, that is glucose, is used in cellular respiration for the production of energy. So you can understand that blood is also playing a great role in the production of energy because the blood is the medium to pick up oxygen and glucose from the lungs and from the intestine and drop them to the cells, and then the cellular respiration begins. During the chemical reactions taking place in the cells, waste materials are produced like carbon dioxide, water, and urea. So the blood, they will diffuse in the blood and the blood will drop them to the concerned excretory organs for the removal from the body. During the chemical reactions in our cells, heat is produced. So the blood is also carrying heat throughout the body, and this is the reason why the temperature of the body is same at any part of the body, because the heat is circulating with the blood. The blood is carrying hormones. We have got several endocrine glands, pituitary gland, adrenal gland, thyroid gland, pancreas. So they produce hormones and blood is taking the hormones throughout our body. It contains antibodies. We are going to see today's discussion. What are antibodies and how do they fight against the infections? It also contains platelets, which help in blood clotting. So whenever we have got a cut or injury, we do not bleed to death because we have a system in our blood for blood clotting. Now let's see what are the different components of our blood. The different components of our blood you can see here. The red blood cells, the white blood cells. There are various type of white blood cells. And the platelets. Now one by one we will see the function of all of them, but before starting their function we should know that all these different type of the cells, they are circulating in a liquid watery part of the blood which is called plasma. What is plasma? It is just a watery part. It is 55% of the total volume of the blood, and if we remove all the red blood cells and white blood cells from our blood, this plasma will be pale yellowish in color, and all the nutrients and the proteins and electrolytes and waste materials, hormones, they are all dissolved in plasma, and then they will be emitted. So plasma is actually the medium of transportation. Red blood cells. So one of the type of the cells, red blood cells, which are also called as erythrocytes, and the red blood cells, you can see this is a shape of the red blood cells. They are little bit compressed in the middle and swollen from the edges, and we call it a biconcave shape. And they are red in color because inside them there is a red color pigment called hemoglobin, and hemoglobin's function is to pick up oxygen, to absorb oxygen. They do not have any nucleus in them, so that large amount of hemoglobin can be accommodated. They are so small that they can pass through the tiny thin capillaries which are as thin as a single strand of our hair. So what is actually the function of red blood cells? During the blood circulation, when the blood goes to our lungs, hemoglobin absorbs oxygen. Hemoglobins combine with oxygen and form oxyhemoglobin. And during the blood circulation, oxyhemoglobin, when it comes just beside the cells and the tissues, oxyhemoglobin is an unstable compound, so it breaks up. Oxygen goes to the cells and hemoglobin returns back to the lungs to pick more oxygen. Then white blood cells, there are various types of the white blood cells. So we can divide them into two main categories, phagocytes and lymphocytes. So there are various types of the phagocytes. So we can see here monocyte, eosinophil, neutrophil, basophil. So there are different types of the phagocytes. We have divided the white blood cells into two categories, phagocytes and lymphocytes. So collectively, phagocytes and lymphocytes, all of them are fighting against the infections. So how we will see it now? Phagocytes are monocyte, eosinophil, neutrophil, and basophil. So how can we differentiate in between them? We can differentiate in between them by the shape of their nucleus. And basophil has got granular structures. It's granule. There are tiny granules, particles, sort of the things in the cytoplasm. But all of them have got a function to eat up the germs, to engulf the germs, to digest the germs. Day and night germs are entering in our body. They are making their way inside our body, but we are not becoming sick. Why? Because these phagocytes eat up the germs. How the phagocytes eat up the germs? You can see the picture here. So this is one of the phagocyte, and the phagocytes can produce finger-like projections called pseudopodia, and they swim in our blood plasma, and they are swimming and going near the bacteria. They will produce the false arms called cytopodia and surround the bacteria. The false arms then fuse together and the bacteria is locked up inside the cytoplasm in a vacuole. The nucleus then produces digestive enzyme and kill the germs. So they are actually the white blood cells, all of them, whether they are phagocytes or they are lymphocytes. They are the soldiers in our blood because they fight against the germs and they make up our immunity. But they are not functioning alone. They are not killing the germs alone. They are killing the germs along with lymphocyte. How? Let's see first of all the function of phagocyte. They are involved in the process which is called phagocytosis. So this process of movement of the phagocyte towards the germs and then eating them up is called phagocytosis. So the phagocytosis is a process in which these cells change their shape and move by producing false arms called pseudopodia. They reach the site of the infection, they produce the pseudopodia, they engulf the germs, they imprison the germs in the vacuole, and later their nucleus produce digestive enzymes to kill the germs. But this function is done along with the help of lymphocytes. So lymphocytes are the rounded shaped cells. See the shape of the lymphocyte, they are rounded with a big rounded nucleus. And whenever the germs enter in our body, they produce a protein which is called lymphocyte, which is called antibodies. So you can see the antibodies are these Y shape. These things are antibodies. So the antibodies will come and they will stick with the germs. The antibodies will stick with the germs like this. They will glue up the germs. They will prevent the germs spreading and reproducing in our body. So just like we stick something with the glue, in the same way, these so many bacteria or any germ, they will be sticking up together because of this glue type of the thing, which is called antibody, which is actually a protein. And then when the phagocytes will swim by producing the false arms called pseudopodia and engulf them. So this is our primary immunity or primary immune response. Some lymphocytes become the lymphocytes are the white blood cells with a large vacuole. They recognize the germs and produce antibodies, which is a protein. Antibodies clump up the germs and prevent them to reproduce and spread. Later, these germs are eaten up by the phagocytes. This makes our primary immunity response. Become memory cells. They recognize the germs, they become memory cell, and they remain hidden in our blood. So whenever the germs enter again, they start producing more antibodies than they were before. So before the germs cause any symptoms, they kill the germs. This is called secondary immune response. What is artificial immunity or artificial immune response? It is of two types. What are those two types? Active acquired immunity, passive acquired immunity. So what is active acquired immunity? Active acquired immunity is the vaccination. So what is actually vaccination? Vaccinations are the dead or the weak germs which are intentionally injected in our body so that the lymphocytes and the phagocytes, they become active. Lymphocytes produce lots of antibodies and these antibodies remain in our blood for a long period of time. So when the germs enter in our body, instantly they will be killed. So this is called active acquired immunity. Now, what is passive acquired immunity? When a person is recovered from a disease, the person has already made lots of antibodies in the blood. So if the antibodies are taken from that person who has recently recovered from a disease that is donated to a person who is struggling or fighting with the disease because of the sickness, because of the old age, because of the weak immunity, or because of the inability to make enough antibodies. So a person who has recently recovered from a disease can donate the antibodies to a person, to another person, so that that person can fight with the infection. But this is not permanent. This is temporary because these are only the antibodies. The white blood cells are not given. Only the antibodies are given. Similarly, when the newborn babies are fed on their mother's milk, from the mother to the baby, the antibodies are transferred to give a temporary immunity to the newborn. Platelets are the tiny fragments of the cells, another type of the particles. They are concerned in blood clotting. So whenever we have got any injury in our blood, there is a soluble protein called fibrinogen. So the platelets convert the fibrinogen into an insoluble fibrous sort of the thing called fibrin. So fibrinogen becomes fibrin. Insoluble thing becomes soluble thing becomes insoluble. Invisible things become visible. So this fibrin will appear in the form of the thread-like structures under your wound, and the red blood cells will be entangled in this network of the fibrous protein, and it makes a clot under your cut part of the skin and it prevents the excessive blood clotting. So this is how this system is maintained, or else if it will not happen in that way, a person will bleed to death by a slight or tiny cut. But we have already these platelets which will make a fibrous sort of the network or mesh under our skin, a cut part of the skin, and the red blood cells are entangled over there. So a clot is made to prevent the further bleeding. This is all about today's class. This is all about the composition and the function of the blood. And today we have finished the chapter of transport system. See you in the next class with a new chapter. Bye-bye.